Well, I try to tend to wait on these Wu flu videos until a few stories have built up and I have a few different things to talk about, and there's been a lot of advancements. And really, there hasn't because, ever since that the last day where I did the video talking about how China announced 15,000 new cases in one day, the numbers have been exceedingly small, which is quite interesting in and of itself. So the total count hasn't really gone up that much. We are now just shy of 70,000. Certainly, we'll be at 70,000 when they do the next update, tonight or tomorrow morning, depending on where you are. And it seems that after changing the way they calculated the number of cases, they've gone back to their old ways because now the numbers seem to be relatively even smaller than they were prior to that day when we got 15,000 new cases dumped. And we really have no reason to believe that this is because the Chinese containment methods are working so well. In fact, China is still cracking down even harder on their people because it seems like they have had no way of containing this outbreak, given all their efforts. In Hubei now, which is of course where Wuhan is, they have banned all private automobiles from the roads, and they've closed all non-essential roads. But, even without them doing that, the streets were pretty much dead anyway. There really wasn't anyone that you ever saw outside, and that's in the whole province, I believe. They closed all the roads, not just Wuhan. Of course, Wuhan itself was already on lockdown, but, if you look at certain cities that are not on total lockdown, we got, a couple weeks ago, video from Shanghai where the streets were completely deserted. So I think that, shutting down the roads and telling people they can't go driving is really going to stop that? No, because there really wasn't any of it going on anyway. People were already staying in their home. They are still already very afraid. And this thing, somehow keeps spreading, which would seem to confirm, or at least jive with, these studies that we're getting now. There was one a couple days ago that came out that said that the R naught, meaning the infectivity rate of the Wu flu, is somewhere between 4.7 to 6.6, and that of course means that the average person who contracts the Wu flu is going to spread it to 4.7, between 4.7 and 6.6 other people. So 4 or 6 other people. So, if you get it, you're probably going to spread it to everyone in your house. Or, some people that you pass on the street, or folks that you work with. You're going to spread it to quite a few people. And of course, that's much higher than, say, the normal flu. We're well past the stage of people saying that this is just the flu. I hope that there are no, people still brain dead enough to believe that. Of course, I guess CNN is still on the air, and I don't watch CNN, but they're probably saying something to that effect. But this is, not the first study that we've seen come out that has shown the R naught to be that high. Well, actually, this one is the first one to show it over 6. But as far as in the 4 range, which again would be catastrophic, even if this study is correct on the low end, that this is about an R naught of a 4, that's still pretty catastrophic as far as the infectivity goes. And so it makes sense that in a place like Wuhan, which has been on total lockdown, that people are still getting sick because even if they're able to minimize this, so the people are not coming into contact with as many people, so that the R naught, let's say, did drop, so the people are not spreading it on average to as many other people. There's so many people who who would have been infected by it to begin with that you still end up with a very high rate of infectivity, which again would seem to lend credence to the assertions that this is a completely airborne virus. And it's because of that, because of this infectivity, that I really think that we won't have to, concern ourselves so much with the data coming out of China, which is obviously manipulated. We will no longer have to rely on sort of the Chinese firewall to receive our information. There will be plenty of information coming out where outbreaks in other countries of this virus have taken hold within a few weeks at the very least, because now we're looking at places all around the world that have a great number of infections, and these are not police states like China that can just lock down their society. This virus is going to tear through pretty much every other society, far worse than it has through the Chinese society, I would surmise. And so, of course, once this takes hold in other countries, where information flows a little better and where people are, much more exposed to one another, we'll see how truly bad this virus really is. Of course, the Prime Minister of Cambodia has egg on his face this morning because it turns out that he allowed this cruise ship to dock that was suspected of having Wu flu. It was another one of the Royal Caribbean-owned ships. I believe it was called the Westerdam. And he allowed it to dock, and he let people, get off the boat, and he was shaking all their hands, the folks who were getting off the boat, which, again, very dumb idea. If you've got this, I guess that was his way of trying to signal that, oh, look, these people aren't, diseased animals. I can touch them, and I'm not afraid. He was trying to make them feel better. And I guess that's a nice gesture, but it turns out that, one of the people who he greeted ended up coming down with the Wu flu after she got off the boat and went to Malaysia. So who knows how many people she spread it to in her travels. Of course, Cambodia, that particular city that they landed in, is not known for being particularly clean. They have these, towering, huge hotels, but still have dirt roads and open sewage everywhere. It's kind of, the typical breeding ground for an epidemic of any kind, of a far less contagious disease, certainly. And so, the Prime Minister of Cambodia now, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes down with the disease. And now how many people has he spread it to? And in Singapore now, which is, far and away the cleanest city on earth by, many metrics, even there this disease is taking hold. And now, every day, they're coming out with, multiple new cases that are being discovered. The problem is that some of these people now, we're getting to the point to where they can't trace back, who they got it from. Because that's the first thing they do is when they find out, that you have this disease, they say, oh, well, who have you talked to? Who have you interacted with? And normally they'll find that there was some interaction with a known infected person. But now they're no longer able to do that because there's just so many people, and the virus is becoming more, prolific in its spread throughout Singapore. Now, again, Singapore has something like 5 million people, I think, and there's still only about 60 folks that have it, so it has a long way to go. But we're just at the bottom of the curve right now. It will not be shocking if in a month Singapore looks a lot more like Wuhan. Now, the scariest news that has come out, and it's funny, this was the only story I intended to talk about, but somehow I went on for over almost 8 minutes now talking about other stories. But there are doctors now, and again, this is still unconfirmed because this is coming out of China, so it's very hard to get good information out of China. You kind of have propaganda, and then you have rumors. Those are your two kinds of information coming out of China, and you have to kind of make sense of this. Well, this one is coming from Taiwan News, and of course, they have a lot of coverage of this coronavirus stuff, a lot of good stuff, I think, but also you have to keep in mind that Taiwan is the mortal enemy of China, of mainland China. So they may be a little more loose with the facts, if it pertains to hurting the reputation of the Chinese Communist government. But with that said, there seems to be no respite for those who have recovered from this virus and then contracted again, because normally, with the typical virus, like say the seasonal flu, if you catch it and you fight it off, your body has built up an immunity to it, because your body was able to heal itself by producing antibodies. So if you catch the virus again, your body's going to produce the same antibodies, and then you'll fight it off. And this is why we vaccinate people, of course, so that your body learns to produce those antibodies, so that if you ever get the virus, you'll be able to fight it off. But with the Wu flu, that doesn't seem to happen. It seems like people are able to contract it a second time, and that their body is not able to defeat it. I guess, and this is tough for me again because I'm not a doctor. So I'm not the best authority on to explain these things, but from what I understand, the immune system kind of has an overreaction. You can think of it kind of like the opposite of being AIDS, because when you have AIDS, your immune system underreacts to everything, and so, pathogens are able to take hold in your body. But in the case of people who catch the Wu flu for a second time, it seems like the immune system overreacts to the extent that it starts hurting the body and not just the virus. And so your body actually kind of kills itself. People are kind of self-destructing. They are having sudden heart attacks, which I guess is would explain the videos that we've seen from a long time ago, though, from like from weeks ago, of people dropping dead in the streets. Now, I'm not so sure about that because the odds that someone at that point in the outbreak would have already caught the virus twice seems kind of low to me. That was back when there were cases still in the quadruple digits. But who knows? But for now, though, it's that is a report that's coming out. Hopefully, it's not true, because that sounds really bad. Because if that were true, then that would mean that we're kind of all screwed. Because we were riding on the hope that yes, this is highly infectious, and so your odds of getting it are high, but your odds of fighting it off are much, much higher, especially if you're not old and you don't have some kind of immune system problem. If you're a generally healthy person, you'll probably fight this off. But if getting it a second time like this is a possibility, and it leads to a heart attack, well, then that's very scary. Because it means that, as this virus, burns through the entire globe, it's not like it's going to burn itself out in areas where everyone has been infected and, has either died or healed, because all those people can just get it again. So the virus is just going to stick around. So I can't even really comprehend what sort of terror that would set in across the globe and what the ramifications of that would be. Hopefully, again, that we never have to find out, but it's something to keep in mind for now, so that we're not surprised if there's confirmation of this later on. This is something that people seem to be seriously talking about, and it's not just being shoved aside as some sort of stupid conspiracy theory. So I think that's about all we have for Wu Flu updates today. If you can get anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. If you haven't already, please do subscribe, because I do upload every day and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.